Hey, today I'm talking about 3 movies about Vincent van Gogh. And the names of those 3 films are Loving Vincent, Vincent and Theo, and At Eternity's Gate. First up is Loving Vincent. This is a 2017 film, and the really interesting thing about this film is that it's entirely paintings. So basically what they did was kind of rotoscoping, like they filmed regular-ish, and then they took every single frame and painted over it into a painting. So it looks really, really cool. Like 100% the style of this movie is great. It's just an achievement in and of itself. But thankfully, the story and the acting and everything else is also really, really good. So it would suck if you put that much effort into something that's just like, eh. No need to worry, they crushed it. But this film mostly covers the lead up around his death, basically. So essentially this character, who's a son of a friend of Vincent's, comes looking for his brother to deliver a letter, but they can't find the brother, and it's like a whole thing. And the dad really wants to know what happened to Vincent, like why did he kill himself? This seems so strange. And so the son is investigating the death of Vincent. Why did he do this? What was exactly happening in his life in those last few months? And it's really, really interesting. It's done very, very well. The characters are all done very, very well. They're interesting, and they really all stand on their own. They're all just kind of like they're characters in a good sense. The story had lots of heart. It was interesting. I also like too how there's a little bit of debate about how exactly Vincent died, because for the longest time it was just believed that he killed himself, because that's what he said. But in, I think it was 2012, these 2 researchers put a big question mark on, did he actually do that? And maybe it was actually this other thing. I think they do lean a little bit more one way than the other, but they address both things, which I liked a lot. But yeah, I don't know, it's just a really good, really interesting movie that I would totally recommend. If you're just gonna watch just one of these, it's definitely this one. It's a very interesting, beautiful looking movie that's well worth a watch. Next up is Vincent and Theo. This is a 1990 film directed by Robert Altman and stars Tim Roth. And the premise of this one is more so about a bigger chunk of his life. It starts closer to when he started painting. What I like too about this one is Tim Roth is closer in age to what Van Gogh's age was, because he died at I think 36 and Tim Roth is 29 in this, so like it's close. Whereas Willem Dafoe in the last one is like 20 years older than he was. So I like this. This is nice. And it definitely focused a lot on both Vincent and his brother, which I thought was very interesting. It's stuff that it's hinted at in the other 2 films, but this one kind of dives more deeply into that. And there were a number of things that I was surprised to learn while watching this one, just about like the relationship and like what they knew of each other in the relationship. I definitely think this one was good, was solid. I just kind of wanted a bit more from it. I wanted more questions answered, like more of earlier life stuff and more even like after his death stuff. I did really like how it opened up though, because it started with an auction of the one really big sunflower painting going for sale, and it's selling for like $21 million in the 80s, and that being juxtaposed with him just living in poverty, and it's just like, that's interesting. I do think there's a couple times too where they like got a little too artsy fartsy, just a little too experimental, just like, okay, sure, he did that type of thing. What I wish though is that they did the original intention for this movie, and that it would have been a mini-series basically. It was going to be like a 6 to 4 hour program that was supposed to be on PBC, but then it was decided to be a movie, so they cut it down to 2.5 hours. And like, it is definitely good and worth a watch, but I think they should have stuck with that original idea, because I think they had the right mentality to capture the entirety of his story very well, and I think that would have been a very, very good watch. Regardless though, I would still recommend this one if you're looking for some more Vincent van Gogh-ness. I don't recommend it as highly as I did Loving Vincent, but this is still a good film that if you want some more story of his existence, this definitely fills in a lot of the blanks. Not all of them, but a good chunk of them. And lastly is At Eternity's Gate. This is a 2018 film starring Willem Dafoe and featuring Oscar Isaac. And the basic premise of this one, it's again just his life, but it's way more of an artsy-fartsy version of his life, of just like him doing art things, like in that dramatic sense. Like there was one part where Vincent is rubbing dirt on his face, and I'm like, this is silly. Like, did he do that? maybe, but it's kind of silly. It's frustrating too, because like Willem Dafoe is one of my all-time favorite actors, and he definitely gives a really great performance here, but the movie is just too pretentious and too of itself. Like, there's times where like I can see the camera in a sense, like the way they're moving the camera. I was just like, it's kind of almost like documentary-esque at moments, and that really took me out of the movie, which sucks because again, Willem Dafoe gives a great performance. Also, I was very thrown off just because of like, I knew Willem Dafoe was much too old to be the character, but I didn't realize how much it would throw me off. I watched this one second, so after I learned how old Van Gogh was for most of his painting time, and I feel like had I watched this one first, I would have been more accepting because Willem is kind of exactly what I pictured Van Gogh as kind of this wrinkly old man, but he wasn't a wrinkly old man. He was a guy in his 30s. So yeah, I don't know. It was in a sense hard for me to suspend my disbelief, even though he was a fantastic performance. It's just like, it's not right. He's too old. So yeah, I still like this movie. It was interesting, and I would recommend it if you just like really need some more Van Gogh stuff, or if you really love Willem Dafoe. It's worth checking out. It's not bad. It's definitely not bad. And maybe you can like suspend your disbelief a little bit more about him being the wrong age, or also maybe you won't get as distracted by the artsy fartsy stuff that happens in the movie. I'm not talking about like him painting, like that stuff's good. It's more like camera work and cinematography and directional stuff, not like the actual substance. Not like what's actually being filmed. It's the way they're filming it. So it's good, it's just fine. Alrighty, now for today's rankings. First up, we got Loving Vincent sitting at number 36 in the really like section. And then after that is Vincent and Theo sitting at number 95 in the quite like section. It's a long ways down, but that's because both categories are very big. I've watched a lot of really good movies this year. And then after that, not too terribly far behind, is At Eternity's Gate at number 115 in the liked category. And this is out of a total of 177 old movies so far this year.